Welcome to qnawire.
Here we're given the percent composition by mass of the different elements of a certain compound. And with this, we want to know what is going to be the empirical formula and what corresponds to the molecular formula if the molar mass is 195 grams per mole. So the first step is going to be to write down the percentages as if we were to have 100 grams of this certain compound. So that means that we would get 49.5 grams of carbon, 5.15 grams of hydrogen. Of nitrogen, we're going to get 28.9 grams, and of oxygen, we would get 16.5 grams. The next thing that we are going to do is calculate the amount of mole corresponding to these quantities, and by this, we're going to divide by the atomic mass of each of them. So for example, in the case of carbon, divided by 12 grams per mole. In the case of hydrogen, by 1 gram per mole. For nitrogen, 14 grams per mole. And in the case of oxygen, divide by 16 grams per mole. This is going to give us the amount of mole for each of them. So for carbon, we're going to get 4.125. For hydrogen, 5.15. For nitrogen, we're going to get 22.006. Let's put it up like complete 0643. And lastly, for oxygen, we will get 1.03125. So the next step is going to be to divide by the lowest value of mole, value of n. In this case, we're going to divide all of the quantities by 1.03125. And just to have things rounded up as best as possible, let's do it like this. So after the division, we're going to get, you can see clearly that for oxygen, we would get 1. For nitrogen, we would get 2. For hydrogen, we would get 5. And finally, for carbon, it would correspond to 4. In this case, it is not going to be exactly 4, but we're going to close it up to the nearest integer number. So with this, the empirical formula would be C4H5N2O. And this compound would have a molecular mass of 97 grams per mole. And in this case, the molar mass is going to be of about 195 grams per mole. So that means that the molecular formula will correspond to twice the amount that we have here. So the molecular formula would be C8H10N4O2. And with that, it would be all. Notice that in this case, we're not going to get exactly the molar mass, so that is why in this experiment tells you that it is going to be about. But the important thing is that the percent by mass is going to give us the correct empirical formula. Also notice that if you add up all of the values over here, you're going to be at a deficit of 0. At a small deficit, since they are not going to add up all the way to 100%. But with that, it would be all. Thank you very much and have a good one.